So yes, thank you very much for joining us. I know virtual times are not ideal, but there's definitely positives, right? Like saving on driving, I think is one thing we can all agree is one positive out of the whole situation. I think Mark already sort of introduced himself, but he will be co-moderating with me, maybe jumping in. He might be popping into the other sessions, but at any point, Mark, feel free to jump in. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment and give a few remarks on Thornton Construction. We are one of the sponsors of the event today. And for those of you that are not familiar with the company, we are construction managers. We've been in South Florida for over 20 years now, I think 22 and counting. We specialize in education, very fitting for this event, healthcare, commercial, municipal are other strong sectors for us. We have fully staffed offices in Miami-Dade, also in Palm Beach, although our geographic coverage spans Central, South, West Florida, and we actually go all the way down to the Keys, where we presently have a new campus that we're building for the College of the Florida Keys. Another example I did want to share, it's just fitting having Dr. Eli on the call with us. We're going to be breaking ground soon on a nice project with FIU. It's phase 2 for the SIPA, it's School of International and Public Affairs. You're probably familiar with Dr. Eli, but it's going to be a new 5-story building right smack in the middle of an occupied campus. So it will take a lot of coordination and it will end up connecting to the existing campus. And that is on track to be completed for the summer 2022 school year. So with that segue, I will turn it over to Dr. Eli, another one of our generous sponsors. Dr. Eli is the director of FIU's Tibor and Sheila Hollow School of Real Estate, also associate professor with the department. And I know, Dr. Eli, you have an impressive resume, a long list of academic papers that have been published in real estate journals, quoted by the press a lot. So with that, I will let you go ahead and give your remarks.
Okay, well, thank you, Natalie, for the very kind introduction. I'm not going to take too much of your time. So Natalie already said I'm the director of the Hollow School of Real Estate at Florida International University. As many of you know, and some of you I see older than others, some of you are younger, real estate used to be the kind of a business that is very much a gut feel kind of business, purely relationship, and people that are more business savvy were more successful and the other ones are less. This has changed dramatically over the last decade or two. A lot of the decisions now for the successful transactions are being made based on analyzing data, building financial models, conducting market analysis, mastering the knowledge of real estate. And this is what we do at FIU. This is what we teach. We have a master's degree in real estate that is a 1-year program. And in that 1 year, students learn basically everything that they need in order to be successful in the market for the 21st century, for the next kind of generation of how we deal with real estate and how we invest in real estate. Our professors, we have more PhDs in real estate that teach in our program than any other program in the country. Currently, we have 5 full-time, hiring a 6th one right now. So each professor teaches his or her own specialty. We also got ranked #1 in the world, tied with National University of Singapore in terms of academic research in real estate, and we're very proud of that. If you want to learn more about our program, I just encourage you to reach out to me or to our recruiter. I can put maybe my email on the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I did want to mention quickly how we're going to be handling questions since we do have a nice small group. You can either put it on the chat, which I believe we do have that functionality. If not, at the end, we'll just go ahead and open up the mics and make it an interactive session. So with that, Chris, thank you very much again for staying just a little bit longer with us and getting some more feedback from you. I know you mentioned in the main session that you, at the beginning, I think back in March, the university reacted very quickly and was conservative with your spending and reduced some of your capital improvement planning, right? Of course, student tuition is a main source of revenue. Have you all seen a drop in student enrollment or students on campus? Is that going to be affecting the revenue source?
So we've seen more students online than we had originally anticipated. We actually slightly over-enrolled, anticipating some reduction in retention that was going to occur. So We actually insulated ourselves fairly well. We wanted to have a little more students on campus this semester than what we ended up with, but we still ended up with a full enrollment. Just some of those ended up in a fully virtual environment.
I see. And then you also mentioned in the main session some provisions that were made, right, to prepare for opening. And we definitely talked a lot about from facilities management standpoint, the air filtration, the UV lights. So out of all the planning, which I'm sure there was a lot, right, but this was unprecedented, so we all just did our best. What worked? What didn't work? What have you had to adjust, or maybe looking to the future, what will you need to be adjusting?
So one of the things that the university is very proud of is we have a very strong contract tracing department, as well as testing, including all of our residential students were tested on a biweekly basis throughout the semester. Both actually all students, residential and non-residential, and then there was random testing for all faculty and employees that were on campus. There were 0 documented cases of transmission in any of our classroom environments. So that was considered a very significant, feather in the cap, so to speak, so from all the efforts that we did. Back to what might move forward and change in the new world, we haven't settled on specific requirements. We have started looking, like I said before, the de-densification of some of the classrooms. We had already gone to the ability to do a lot of remote and distance learning, and some of that was more based on recording classes, but with some minor tweaks and modifications, those can actually become distance learning spaces. I think that we've been looking a little more at flexibility, knowing that some of the large spaces that we had set up for non-classroom uses, and we would never think to put classrooms in them, seeing how we had to adapt and turn them into classrooms. I think that that'll kind of play a role in how we look at these spaces. There might need especially on the acoustical side, we noticed areas that were not set up, obviously, as we needed to expand, we looked for larger spaces because we had certain classes that still functioned well in a larger environment. But when you're trying to get 50 people in a room, 66 feet apart each, you need a quite large space to do that. So we thought that was pretty interesting. And then something else that we did that it ended up not being as useful as we thought initially, but we actually brought out several large event tents. We set up 3 large event tents on campus. One was set up as a classroom space, a fully air conditioned, could seat up to 50 students. We also set one up as a study tent, and then a 3rd tent was set up to be used for expansion space for the School of Music. The School of Music one remained. Both the classroom and the study tent went down about half the semester. We removed them because they were not being heavily utilized. But it was an interesting kind of shift. Like, how do we create space in 3 months that we don't have? And we very quickly were able to go. Unfortunately, we had a couple tropical storm warnings, so we had a couple put them up, take them down, put them up, take them down. But we were able to manage and get through it. And it's turned out to be a very successful semester for us.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's all that anybody can do right now is prepare for the worst as best as possible. And if it doesn't work, at least you were prepared, right?
Right.
And then just getting back to more specifically what you mentioned with I think you said 380 air handling units that were placed, the UV lights. So if this trend continues moving forward as far as your specifications changing for future plans, do you anticipate like a certain percentage markup, let's say like a COVID markup, that you have to take into account for all these, layers of precautions?
So we haven't really figured out exactly what is staying moving forward. So definitely in our retrofits, where we might have gone with traditional code standards, we will be looking at adding enhanced features in those. So in a lot of our new construction, some of what, as LEED has evolved, code minimums have aligned with LEED, and then LEED evolves, and then code minimums aligned with LEED. So there's always kind of this growing quality on the mechanical and efficiency side. But I think that there will be a strong focus, especially on our retrofit side. We have over 5 million square feet on campus. And we have a fairly robust deferred maintenance program where we do go back through and retrofit buildings, where we really will be focusing on kind of some of those more enhanced features that may not be a minimum within code, like the UV lighting and some other things like that.
Right. And then with the projects that you have been able to still push forward, I think there was a mention of this in the main session. Have you seen delays in materials from your, your GCs and their vendors, or, material escalation in the price?
So we've seen a variety of things. We can't really peg down exactly what's going on yet. So we had a major project delivery in May, and that was the housing, the Lakeside Village. What was interesting about that is we had manufactured product, but we couldn't always get the product. So we saw the evolution in that project, which was delivering in May, which was early in the pandemic. We had border closures, and we had specialty seating coming from Belgium we couldn't get. Then we got it to come through the port, but then we couldn't get the installers to fly in from Belgium. A lot of the furniture is manufactured up in Canada and up in the north. We had issues getting it down here in time. We had a little bit more manufacturing issues late summer, where we started to see the things that were ordered were getting pushed out. So in the June, July, we saw some delays associated with getting some light fixtures and some other things that we were needing to complete a project that we TCO'd the second week in July. We went to bid on a large STEM building in late summer. Surprisingly, we saw a significant dip in pricing. We attributed it to uncertainty in the market, and that the subcontractors were being a little more ambitious, trying to shore up what they saw a drying up of their backlog. But we're also out for another GMP right now on a recital project, and we're not seeing the same reductions that we were hoping to see that we had just gotten about 4 months earlier. So it's really been all over the place for us right now. We're not seeing labor shortages. From what I'm understanding is there's still a strange material escalation that's going on, and it might just be uncertainty on availability. As I understand, as a lot of projects have been just throughout the industry have been slowed down, everybody is ending up in a situation where they have a bunch of shovel-ready projects. So there's a real risk, I think, that if we all decide that it's time to go at the same time, we're probably going to be really competing with each other for resources.
Right. And I think that what you said about it being all over the place proves true for us as general contractors. I know I've asked my colleagues' opinions, and I think from what I've asked, we have not really seen a slowdown from our subs as far as the pricing. Definitely, we've seen a little bit of an escalation. But like you said, I think it's a case-by-case basis, and the uncertainty has a lot to do with that. And actually, something was mentioned that I thought was kind of interesting in the main session regarding the big lake in the center of campus being connected to the main waterway, the Gables waterway, which I was not aware of that either. And I was just curious. Immediately, I thought of that nasty storm that passed by. I think it was Etta, or
Yeah.
however you pronounce it. It brought a bunch of rain, and I was just wondering how the university fared with that amount of water.
So we did well. One of our biggest risks, that the lake is in the center, and the campus actually slightly bowls down to that lake. So generally we drain well. One of our bigger risks is actually storm surge once the bay and the water and everything raises, because that is actually part of the tidal connection. So as long as we can avoid the storm surge events, we're usually pretty safe. And luckily we haven't had any significant storm surge events that have affected us here, significant enough to cause flooding in any of our buildings.
Okay. So, I mean, just generally speaking, kind of big picture as far as your capital improvement plan goes. I know that some things are still up in the air, but at this point, if you can talk a little bit about what you see coming in your pipeline, or what was in your master plan before that you think maybe might still happen, just a little bit of what that looks like.
So the university is still somewhat non-committal. The university is set kind of as a milestone, the safe return in January of our students. So one of the things that we did from an academic calendar side is the university moved up the start of classes for the fall semester. What that allowed us to do is go virtual the week of Thanksgiving, and then all of the exams will be taken virtually. The students won't actually return until January 25th. That's given them a nice long time to go home, be safe, and then come back. And this prevented them from having to go home for Thanksgiving, come back for finals, go home for Christmas, come back early in January. So we're hoping that that decision, both the moving up of the fall semester and then obviously the delay of 1 or 2 weeks of the spring semester, will give us an opportunity to have a safe return to campus. That safe return to in-person learning is kind of critically tied to our forecasting. So right now, the university has actually pushed back a lot of its capital planning we would traditionally start that here in the fall semester. It's all being pushed back to do the early planning in the December, January timeframe that will allow us to overlay the safe return to campus before we pick a path forward. So right now, I don't know what our restart plan looks like on the capital project side. We saw a reduction in our projected capital spend of about 80% on our capital projects. Obviously, we still do have projects moving forward. We've prioritized the life safety compliance and then any gift funded projects. So the 2 projects I referenced before, both the recital hall and the STEM building, are both fully gift funded. So there's no need for those to be impacted, so I don't have a clear answer. I can tell you we're spending a lot of time planning and looking at what we had previously thought we were going to do, making sure it's still a priority. A lot of our projects remain in permitting. We're not actively pushing them very hard because we want them to be ready to go. We're not trying to pull the permit and then have no money to spend on them. So we will end up with a series of shovel-ready projects once we are given the go-ahead to start spending again.
Okay, that sounds good. So we do have just like about 10 minutes left until we're closing. So I want to give some time for the audience and open up your mics if you all wish. We do have a question here in the chat. In the long run, does foresee a permanent shift of the student body moving to the virtual classroom environment?
So I don't know that we would see a permanent shift in moving to the virtual environment. I think we have to be acknowledging that there has always been a shift to virtual pre-COVID. I think we'd be foolish to think that COVID doesn't play more into that. One of the things we've seen, though, is that not only does the university believe it's important, but the students believe it's important to actually be in person. And we've given them the opportunity to choose which modality they would like. And there's an overwhelming support actually for them to be on campus. Now, granted, they want to be safe and feel safe while they're on campus, and that's where we come in to help them do that.
Are you all capping the number of students, or like, is there a percentage that you're capping for who can choose in person?
So we are not expanding the student population beyond our traditional 12,000 students that we have. So it's an ebb and flow. Obviously, there's, with the decompression, there's a reduction that we can support on campus because we can't support the same amount just with more spacing. So it's a real fine balance. We would like to be at maximum capacity that we can support physically on campus. That would be our preference.
Right.
Physically, safely on campus.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to open up their mic and if there's any other questions for Chris before he heads out, go ahead, John. You can open up your mic. Oh, you're still muted, John. Hold on.
There we go. Good look, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, so, you mentioned new technology and filtration and mechanical systems and air purification and that sort of thing. Have you seen anything somewhat, U of M is somewhat cutting edge. Have you seen anything out there that may be a wave or a new type of, mainstay in the technological field for mechanical systems or air filtration, or, is there going to be a new type of system that we haven't seen regularly implemented?
So we haven't seen much on the mechanical side as far as what wasn't already out there pre-COVID. We've seen a lot of people trying to present some new technologies. There's both in kind of the cleaning, more in the cleaning and cleansing realm. Right. There's some electrostatic film applications that can go on that are supposed to provide prolonged antimicrobial. I mentioned that earlier. So that's a lot of those types of technologies we're seeing more of. We've been approached from folks who would like to install UV lights and occupancy sensors in elevators, right? So when the elevator detects that there's nobody in it, that it would potentially cleanse itself. But we're also not seeing elevators as a common transmission location. So I would say that a lot more of what we're seeing is kind of newer technologies that maybe we haven't explored, and I can't really even speak to how long they've been out there, has really been kind of in this, how do we keep everyone safe and clean and clear in the cleansing and upkeep type of scenario.
Awesome. Go ahead, Dago. You can
Hi, Chris. How you doing? Nice seeing you again.
Good seeing you.
A question for you, based on everything that's going on with the economy and obviously with the COVID, have you seen a reduction on donation gifts for capital improvement, or is that pretty much staying the same? Can you give us some info on that?
So I'm not directly tied into that group. I can tell you though, I have 2 large gift funded projects moving forward. And we have still continued to see donations come in. I know that our medical group too has recently received some very large donations. So I don't know that I can specifically answer it. I know that the university is still chasing a couple of large gifts. I do know that in the economy, with it being as strange as it was, some folks are doing quite well and others aren't doing as well. So I think too, where you have your money and your ability to spend kind of plays into that. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot more. I could probably look into that and sidebar with you if I find out any more info.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see. I know obviously you said 80% reduction on your capital, which obviously it's quite a lot. So I would imagine you would have to depend on those donations. So I was curious if that has gone up in order to supplement that reduction on 80% is where I was leading.
And a lot of, the 80% seems somewhat large and staggering. We were in the middle of a pretty large expansion effort on our student housing. And a lot of that we were going to the debt market to fund. So the decision to not go to the debt market right now really had a significant impact on the capital plan. But we were spending at a rate that was in excess of our typical, because we were going to the debt market. So because these were revenue generating housing projects that could pay the debt. So it's somewhat of a symptom of what we were in the middle of doing. And maybe if it were a more typical 5 years ago, it might have only been a 45% reduction or something to that effect.
Thank you for that clarity. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? And with that student housing, by the way, I know you said it was delivered back in May, but are all the phases of that project done, or is anything left to still occur?
No, so we actually are in permitting right now, almost fully permit approved on the first portion of the next phase. The demolition of that project was actually supposed to begin in May. With the pandemic hitting in March and us delivering the new dorms in May, we decided not to proceed with the demolition of those 2 towers that would come out and be replaced, which gave us that room to decant on campus and provide a little more student housing on campus. That's one of the projects that we're trying to figure out, when is it going to go? I'm essentially shovel ready on that one. But it's one of those ones that I am also going to be going back to the debt market to try and get the money to proceed. So it's getting kind of caught up in that go, no go decision time right now.
Right. And have you gotten any feedback from your CM as far as subs holding their price? I don't know if that, if that had already been locked in or not.
No, because we were supposed to begin in May, we figured we were going to reprice, because the earliest we would be releasing that project was a full year behind schedule. So we kind of figured at that point it would already need to be repriced. We were a little hopeful with that project we priced over the summer, the STEM building project, that had we gone back to the market around now, we might have still seen some reductions. But what we're seeing with the recital hall project, we're hearing that it's probably not going to be the case. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we're almost right at the 5 o'clock mark. If anybody had one last question, otherwise, I think Stephanie, we're going to be wrapping it up. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking some time out of your day to join us and share your feedback with us.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
to
you.
all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everybody, bye.